Chris Uhlmann. Chris, where does this sit historically as a low point for the Liberal and National parties?
Well, it's historically the lowest point for the Liberal Party since it was founded 80 years ago. They've split before. They split in 1987, but that was just before the election. They reformed after the election. So that split lasted around about 8 weeks. But at that stage, back then in 1987, where they got thumped by the Labor Party, the Liberal Party alone held 43 seats in Parliament. Now, if they were still a coalition, they would struggle to have 43 seats this time around. And that time in 1987, the National Party held more seats in Parliament than the Liberal Party holds now. So by any measure, you've seen a structural realignment in Australian politics. This is something that they may never get over.
Well, that's a dire warning, isn't it? A dire scenario. Where to for Susan Lee and for David Littleproud as they regroup?
Look, I've heard every iteration of what might happen next from people inside both parties from here on, or from that they'll merge and become one party as they have in Queensland sometime in the not too distant future. I think that's highly unlikely, but that's one view that's doing the rounds. The other one is that they stay split and that the National Party tries to build itself a completely different kind of base. It's not going to lose its seats. It's much better defined than the Liberal Party is, and it might look to push into the outer metro seats, which is where the Liberal Party thought that it might have some play. So I think there are people inside the National Party who are thinking that one day they may be the senior party in this coalition.
Yeah, well, they've got a long way to go.
Yeah. There's a very long way from here. And it can get worse before it gets worse.
And, isn't it the old Irish adage, how do you get to Dublin? Well, I wouldn't start from here. Yeah. And that's the basic point here, because they're split, they're struggling, they don't have anywhere near the seats to be a force in the parliament. But I think we had a reminder yesterday with Paul Erickson of how clinical Labor's approach was. And something that jumped out at me in his comments was his answer to Phil Curry, where he said the Senate vote for Labor is up, above the House of Reps. So he's basically pointing out that 35% primary or just under isn't a fair assessment of where Labor's primary is at. It's actually above that, because the Labor Senate vote is much higher, and a lot of Labor voters, say in Mackellar, in Kooyong, in Bradfield, all of those seats are voting tactically in the lower house for a Teal, an independent, maybe in Wannon as well. I mean, there's a heap of seats where he's basically making the point the Labor voters are voting for others who can actually win, and so deflating what is otherwise a better primary vote.
Oh, yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me, what he said, is this is the first time that an incumbent party, so a party of government, has held every single seat and then won some since 1966. And so that's an extraordinary achievement. And I think if you look at something like the seat of Goldstein, where you see that tactical voting afoot. Now, Tim Wilson is, it looks like, going to just fall over the line with about 128 votes ahead of Zoe Daniel, but he got nearly 44% of the primary vote and nearly fell short, being chased down by Zoe Daniel, who was on 30% of the primary vote, which meant simply just about every other preference that there was to gather up, Zoe Daniel gathered it. So there is tactical voting going. So in the future, again, if you're trying to get a Liberal Party back, first thing is you have to be well defined. They're badly defined. They'll fight over what they are. But then you've got to get to a point where you're winning 45% of the primary vote in order to win a seat. They're huge tasks ahead.